Today marks the official announcement that the Royal Australian Mint will be changing the effigy on Australian coins. That's right, so the $1 coin will have a new effigy come December of this year. This marks the first time we've seen a new effigy or a new monarch on Australian coinage since 1953, when Queen Elizabeth II took the place of her father, King George VI. Now, I must also confess that I stand corrected. I anticipated that we would see a recreation of the Martin Jennings portrait of King Charles. Instead, we have seen a new designer, to Australian coinage that is, and his name is Dan Thorne. He's also about my age, which I think is pretty cool to see a, design being used all over Australia, designed by someone who's in their late 20s, or I think he might actually be about 30. So, very interesting, and welcome to the world of Australian coinage, Dan. Something you may notice about the new portrait is Charles is facing to the left. This is typical each time there is a change in the monarch. So Elizabeth was facing to the right on all Australian coinage. You'll now see Charles facing to the left. It was an interesting design choice to go without the crown for this design of Charles, but I actually quite like it. I think it's quite nice. And I think, Dan, you've done a really good job, so it gets a thumbs up from me. There'll be plenty of people whinging and complaining that they don't like it and they've got issues with it, but I think you've done a good job, Dan. So if you ever want to come on the channel for an interview, I'd be happy to have you and happy to have a chat. It's also worth noting, if you're on the edge of your seat to scoop up as many of these coins as possible, the initial mintage will be 10 million, so they won't be particularly rare and they should be very accessible, so anyone wanting to get their hands on these shouldn't have too much trouble. Interestingly, as part of the media release, the Royal Australian Mint have also clarified that you can still use the coins with the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on them. I would go one step further and clarify that even the old pennies, shillings, florins, all that sort of jazz is still legal tender. You can still go to the Reserve Bank in Martin Place in Sydney and swap those over. So even the old George V florins are still legal tender, although you might have trouble spending them at the local supermarket, but they are still legal tender. The only two coins to ever be officially demonetised are the Holy Dollar and Dump from 1813. The more you know. Now, the Royal Australian Mint have announced that these designs should be coming out in December. So before the end of the year, we should be seeing 2023 dated coins with Charles on them, which is quite exciting. And, it's a monumental occasion. It's been quite some time, not since 1953 that we've seen a change in monarch on Australian coinage. So we're a little behind the eight ball, the UK have had their Charles portrait for quite some time now, but we're finally, updating the coinage in Australia, and it's a very exciting time. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on the new Dan Thorne design, which will be gracing Australian coinage come December of this year. That's it, just a bit of breaking news that I thought I'd share with everyone, and we'll see you in the next video.